Everybody. This is going to be an amazing live stream. I hope you are looking forward to this as much as I have. I have Chris in the green room right now, and he knows the green room very well because he and I used to work as interns at Washington, D.C.'s Fox News Channel Bureau, their Washington, D.C. Bureau back in 2002. He just reminded me, and I made sure that we did not catch up too much before the stream so that everything is very original and you get all the original reactions to all the crazy things we're going to talk about and catching up over the last almost 20 years. I can't even believe it. I have some surprises for Chris, some surprise photos that he has never seen before. I know he can hear me right now, but he can't react. You can't hear him. So the first thing that I want to start with, if you all are not familiar with Top Shot, is to just show you the moment that Chris Cheng, my buddy, won Top Shot. This is season 4. And I'm guessing because of copyright and stuff like that, it's really hard to find the actual History Channel video. So I'm going to show you video of them watching at a bar. But it's still cool because you get to see the audience reaction and the moment that Chris wins. And then I'm going to bring him in and we can fire questions at him. No pun intended. So is everybody ready for this big moment? Here we go. And the crowd goes wild. And there he is, everyone. Chris. The crowd was going wild for you, buddy. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing so well. It's so great to see you. And there are some moments in our lives where you see these key pivotal moments in your life, and it kind of never gets old. And so it's really fun to watch my Top Shot win again. And I'm so glad to be on the show and be catching up with you.
Thank you. No, seriously, so good to see you. Well, so tell me that moment before we go back and talk about how you got into all of this and everything. You were watching with people at that bar, right? So, but you knew you already had won.
Yeah. So here's kind of some behind the scenes, baseball, if you will, with TV shows. So, in the bar, that was 9 months after I'd actually won Top Shot season 4. So for 9 months,
oh my God,
I had to keep my mouth shut. And I went back to my day job at Google, and everyone knew that I'd taken 6 weeks of unpaid leave to go compete on this gun show. And I'm a self-taught amateur who kind of had no business being on a TV show for marksmen. And so everyone at work kind of just was like, oh, okay, Chris is like off shooting guns, which isn't a thing I did a ton of before winning Top Shot, ironically. But I had to pretend like life was normal for 9 months at work, and I didn't tell my family, didn't tell my then boyfriend, now husband, didn't tell anybody that I actually won $100,000 and Top Shot and this pro shooting contract. So it was.
How can you keep that a secret? That seems crazy to me.
Well, one, I guess I always like to challenge myself, and to keep a secret like that for so long. And I had family and friends pressing me like, Chris, how well did you do? And they would try and plant these little like kind of landmines and traps to see if they could get me to say something about what kind of weapons I shot or how far I got in the competition. But I avoided all of the traps, and it's fun. It's fun for me to try and see how far can I push myself. And so much of what life is for me is it's a competition, right? It's a series of games, of winning and losing. And so for me, like trying to keep this secret for 9 months was just a little mini competition that I had with myself, and I won. So I won my own competition that I created for myself.
It's amazing. Tell me, what was it like when you're working at Google and you're telling people you're going to go shoot guns, because I don't know, do those worlds typically cross each other? It doesn't seem like a place full of firearms owners, if I were to just take a guess, but maybe I'm stereotyping Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think the public perception of tech companies is most of them are anti-gun, right? You look at like YouTube policies, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, sort of a lot of tech companies have anti-gun policies. But then if you go to the employee level, there are, and I didn't know this until after I won Top Shot, and then people started to know that I was a gun person at work, that there are a lot of gun people in tech. And here in Silicon Valley, I live in San Francisco, and there are just so many gun owners in the tech industry. And what I found is that one of the primary attraction points of firearms for tech people is their tactile nature, that they're tactile, they're mechanical, and a lot of tech people are naturally inquisitive people who want to learn and understand how something works. So firearms, I think for a lot of tech people, are more of kind of a tool and a machine that they want to learn and understand. And then, of course, a lot of guns are fun to shoot and have a fun recreational hobby. A lot of obviously people too use firearms for self-defense and home defense, personal protection. So tech workers themselves are not necessarily anti-gun, and there's a lot of gun owners here in Silicon Valley.
That's really interesting. I did not know that. Okay, so tell me this. We're looking at your website now. So you went from being Chris Cheng at Fox News Channel, Washington, D.C. Bureau with Allison, who was not Allison Morrow at the time, but now I am. So surprise, I use my middle. It does. I've said it, I think, on my channel before, though perhaps I don't want to give this away to everybody who's watching, but I started using my middle name for television because my last name was way too long, and I knew the anchors were going to completely botch it. And also, I had a feeling I was going to be a late bloomer when it came to getting married, and might not change my name until later. And for security reasons, I figured I'm just going to go with a fake name. So I go down the TV route, but you go to Google, or you're in the tech world. Maybe could we actually, before we go all the way back, because I have some surprises for you and everything, like I said, you're now Top Shot Chris. This is your website, right? And I want to make sure everybody knows that if you want to follow Chris on YouTube or his other sites or his website, it's all in the description of the video, so you can check out all that stuff there and definitely do that. Chris, you're killing it on YouTube, by the way. Your videos they're hundreds of thousands of views, and I was going to pull up one of them in a second. But tell me what it's like now to be Top Shot Chris. I mean,
yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because 20-some years ago, when you and I were together interning in DC, you and I shared an interest in broadcast journalism and storytelling, right? And learning more about the world that we live in, and having an influence in how people consume and understand all of these amazing, oftentimes amazing news stories. Sometimes they're also very heartbreaking, but also as much as they're inspiring. And so it's just this full gamut of storytelling. And so when I rewind the tape 20 years ago, when you and I met and had a fun summer in DC, nowhere in my life or career plan did I ever say, or in my mind or anywhere say, I want to go shoot guns and I want to become a Second Amendment advocate. That was nowhere in the cards, nowhere in the plan. But, life is really strange sometimes. And I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunity that this country has given me, and the opportunity that I took to take a risk. Right, I quit Google back in 2012 when I had a very solid, stable career and a career path. I could have just kind of stayed at Google and made sort of easy money, if you will. But I quit, and I wanted to go explore and be an entrepreneur and go and create a brand and a name, literally a brand and a name for myself. And so my Top Shot Chris brand is, for me, I'm very focused on firearm safety and education. And I'm also in the middle of, Second Amendment advocacy and literally in the middle of one of our country's most controversial but important debates of I would argue, of our lifetime, which is, gun rights versus gun control. It's literally a life and death conversation for a lot of Americans, and it's also freedom versus safety and security, and trying to strike that balance between making people feel safe and actually having them be safe. And that's been a very challenging and difficult balance to strike.
Yeah, I was going to show a little bit of your testimony in front of Congress, which I just found, which you're such a humble person, because it's like, hey, Chris, will you come on my channel? You're like, sure. And you don't list off like, oh, by the way, Allison, I'm testifying in front of Congress and doing all these things. You're just like the same old guy. That's why I love you so much, because you're so humble. And it's been, it's just been so wonderful to see your journey, and just like it's just come so organically, which I think is the coolest thing about it. Like you said, you're just kind of just being you. And that's my favorite kind of career story, I guess, is a person who's just them. And then their passion just kind of takes them, instead of saying, I'm going to force myself into like one particular hole or another. Like you just do you. And then the professional stuff works itself out. So I wanted to, before I play this, actually, because I want to make sure the audio is right. We got a couple nice shout outs here. Chris is a fantastic spokesperson for our liberties and seems like a genuinely nice person too. And I can attest to that's very true. Chris Cheng is a great shooter. Watched every episode of Top Shot.
Fun.
I would love to be a self-taught amateur, but the FBI likes me untaught. I thought I saw Chris in an NRA ad. Is that true?
I do have a relationship, with the NRA. Clearly, the NRA is a very controversial organization. Happy to talk about if anyone has any more specific questions about my. There was a recent NRA video related to the recent increase in racist attacks against the Asian American community. And the backdrop is, as an Asian American who has just been so upset and honestly at times lost, right, as to why it's happening and what to do. But having gone through some really just sort of dark moments, like seeing so much suffering amongst the Asian American community, I then said to myself, well, I need to do something, right? I think we all want to do what we believe is the right thing. And so I worked with the NRA on creating a video that was basically highlighting how some of these gun control measures that are currently being considered in Congress are not going to help law-abiding, responsible gun owners, such as Asian Americans, who are flocking to gun stores in droves because many of us are scared, rightfully so, and who are deciding that firearms are something that we want to use for self-defense and home defense. If you look at 2020, we just had unprecedented, levels of violence, of civil unrest, police violence, calls to defund the police. And if you put all these pieces together, what is one of the logical conclusions is that if law enforcement can't be there for me all the time because they're getting defunded, they're being vilified. Officers in San Francisco are being vilified as well, and so that leads to a conclusion that I have to be my own first responder and take care of myself and my family and my loved ones.
Okay, should I play a little quick clip of this real fast, the beginning? Okay, let's do that. Everybody let me know if you can't hear it.
Member Grassley and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Chris Cheng, and I'm honored to join you today representing myself and only myself. As a gay Asian American professional sports shooter, this hearing is very timely and essential to our national conversation on civil rights and our future as a peaceful nation. I'm here today to share my quintessential American story. In 2012, I earned the title of History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 champion.
Hang on, I'm going to pump up the volume.
Yeah.
Everybody stand by. Was it low for you, Chris?
Yeah, it's a little low, but
okay. Maybe I forgot to hit the hang on. This is too important. So we're going to go. You know how it is running your own control room.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
So while you're tackling that, I'll read one of the comments. Oh, Bill.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Chris living in SF with Boudin as the DA. Oh man, our district attorney. He's a nightmare. Who's literally not enforcing the law and letting just all sorts of really disturbing, sad craziness go wild on the streets of San Francisco. People are getting hurt, and it's a really ugly situation. But it looks like you got the volume going. So
yeah, no, that's an interesting. That's an interesting topic to discuss as well as it relates to firearms. Because I'm curious, has the tone changed around the idea of self-defense at all, or no? Is the city pretty still divided over that issue? I mean, how does I had photographers I worked with in Seattle who had literally fled the Bay Area because they were having to get armed security because literally they'd have their cameras ripped right out of their arms or out of their trucks, like windows broken constantly.
Yeah, the conversation in San Francisco is definitely changing, right? You have Asian Americans in particular, right, over the past year who thought that they were safe, right? Just walking around the city streets, and once you are either attacked or you see this high volume, high velocity frequency of attacks on Asian Americans, your sense of security is going to get shattered. And it's an unfortunate reality that there are dangerous people out there. And especially in a lot of cities, because you've got high density of people in a smaller area, there's just, you're increasing your chances, right? That you might come across someone who's looking to do you or others harm. So the attitudes have definitely changed around self-defense. I would say a lot of the conversations aren't necessarily around firearms in San Francisco. It's much more about patrol, like neighborhood patrols and neighborhood watches, pepper spray, tasers, baseball bats, kind of more like old school, non-lethal-ish weapons. But definitely firearms are, a part of the consideration for a lot of Bay Area residents who are not feeling as safe as they have in the past.
That's interesting too. Okay, let's try this again. This should work this time. This is Chris. If you just joined us, this is Chris testifying. Is this a Senate or a House hearing? Senate.
Yeah, this is a U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee.
Okay, March 25th, 2021.
Cheng, and I'm honored to join you today representing myself and only myself. As a gay Asian American professional sports shooter, this hearing is very timely and essential to our national conversation on civil rights and our future as a peaceful nation. I'm here today to share my quintessential American story. In 2012, I earned the title of History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 champion. Now, only in America could a self-taught amateur shooter train and win $100,000 and a professional shooting contract. After this, I quit my job at Google and switched careers and focused on firearms, culture, and their role in American history. I earned a master's degree in policy studies from Middlebury College in 2006. Following my Top Shot win, I naturally wanted to research gun policy and history. But I was appalled to discover how gun control can be used as a tool of discrimination. While our Black brothers and sisters have arguably experienced the most negative impacts of gun control through structural racism at the hands of the government, Asian Americans have also been negatively impacted. I will share two examples. First, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 was the first federal law to explicitly prohibit the immigration of people of a particular nationality and set an extremely dangerous precedent for future xenophobic mandates. Second, in response to mounting pressures during World War II,
Executive Order 9066 mandated that more than 110,000 innocent Japanese Americans were to be forcibly relocated to internment camps. This order stripped my Japanese ancestors of their rights and their civil liberties. The goal was to keep us unarmed, invisible, and silent.
Okay, Chris, what are you feeling as you're doing this testimony? That's a big day to testify in front of Congress. Were you scared?
No, for me, when there's kind of like these big moments, I was a little nervous, but it's sort of like that good type of nervous where I care a lot about what was about to happen, right? Sitting down in front of the United States Congress in the Senate Judiciary Committee room, testifying about why I feel so strongly about our Second Amendment rights and how that some of these gun control measures are going to be hurting people, right, by preventing them from getting firearms in a timely manner. So, you often will take that anxiousness, right, that right, drive to perform well and right, turn that into positive energy. So that's sort of what I was feeling. And, this is my story too. So it's not something that is difficult for me, right, to talk about, because this is sort of the story of my life.
Now, were you always interested in guns? I can't remember if you've already said this. When did your interest peak? Like when were you, was this something that you were always fascinated by as a kid, or did you like when exactly did that become a thing that was just like the beginning? Not when it became a serious thing, but when were you just like the glimmer in your eye?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California in Orange County, and my father taught me how to shoot at the age of 6. He was in the United States Navy, and that was his first introduction to firearms. So he was the first generation gun owner on, that side of my family. But, we didn't shoot very often. We only went to the range maybe once every 3 to 4 years, punch some holes in paper, and then, the guns, go back in the safe kind of thing. But then fast forward to, let's see, I must have been 28 years old because it was my second year at Google, where, that was my first job, out of college. I finally had some, disposable income, and I wanted to purchase, my own gun for some time. But that moment was when I did purchase my first gun. But even then, I wasn't like shooting very often. I wasn't competing. I wasn't winning any kind of awards. And it really wasn't until Top Shot season 1 started airing on the History Channel, and I was watching it with some of my Googler friends, that's when I really started to get more interested, seeing this whole variety of weapons and really fun challenges on Top Shot. And I was sort of, if you've never seen the show, right, it's like Disneyland for adults with guns, and having these just incredibly creative, fun, and unique challenges that literally are not available to anyone anywhere else in the world.
I want to show people your YouTube channel too. So, actually, I kind of want to show the video of the Star Spangled Banner, but I saw your video with Snoop Dogg, and that I really want to show. So I'm not sure how many shooting songs that people would like to listen to, but how difficult is it to shoot a song?
So yeah, so what's interesting, right? So for those of you who don't know what shoot a song means, there's this company called Musical Targets, and they create metal plates for when you shoot bullets at them, they emit musical tones. And so in addition to being a marksman, before that, I've always been a musician. I'm a double bassist, classically trained, and have done a little bit of jazz as well. And then I'm also a singer. I'm a current baritone singer for the San Francisco Symphony Chorus.
I did not know that.
I've been a volunteer for them for gosh, it's 11 years now.
Why didn't we ever get to hear you sing at Fox?
I don't know. I guess like there was just like never a good opportunity, but it is quite hard, I think, to shoot music because of the way that the gun is the instrument, but also these metal plates, right, are part of sort of, right, the totality of, the instruments that I'm working with. And the kind of the sound inflection, there's kind of not a good way to do any kind of crescendos or decrescendos, and just sort of breathing life into bullets hitting metal plates is very different than wind being pushed right through my mouth and my nose, right, teeth, and like shaping words, and or playing a string instrument. So it's quite hard. It's quite hard, but something that I've gotten quite good at. And yeah, the Star Spangled Banner is obviously an oldie but a goodie.
What is the secret to teaching oneself how to become, what do we call you, a marksman?
Marksman.
Okay, yeah. What's the secret there?
Yeah, so okay, marksmanship, like any other skill or trade, has its fundamentals, right? And so I think, as if with most skills and most trades, if you focus on the core fundamentals, right? In this case, core fundamentals of marksmanship are about sight picture, sight alignment, trigger control, breathing control, and having focus, right, on what you are doing, right there, right then, in the moment. And so for me, like that's been key to my, to my success as a champion marksman, is just always fall back on the fundamentals.
Like what you do here with Snoop Dogg. Let's play it out.
99 bottles of beer on the wall. Beer on the wall. Yeah!
That was amazing. What was it like meeting those folks?
My life, sometimes I'm just like, did I ever think that I'd be on a first name basis with Snoop Dogg? No, like never in my life. So some fun things about the Go Big show, which was on TBS. This was their very first season. I had a delightful time on the Go Big show. But backstage, I would see Snoop Dogg and Rosario Dawson, Bert Kreischer, who's the host, and we would all have conversations and hang out. It was cool and also very strange. Like, okay, like here's Snoop Dogg giving me fist bumps and giving me shout outs, saying like, hey Chris, like great shooting. I'm like, hey Snoop, thanks.
That's amazing, especially for our generation too, because it's kind of a big deal for what are we? Are we late millennials? Is that what we are?
Personally, I'm Gen X. I was born in 1979, so I claim
Okay.
Gen X all the way.
You're almost a boomer, Chris. You're so old.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So let me see if there are any questions here that we should get to before I reveal a couple of my surprises. We have Chris seems so focused while shooting. Do you ever have a trick of the trade? Like if you feel like you're getting into it and you're losing your focus, or you start to get nervous, do you not change your underwear for 7 days? Like what's your go-to? Do you eat something or not eat something before you're going to compete? And I love who's your dog? You should bring your dog in sometime.
That's my 6-month-old puppy. Her name is Brownie.
Aww.
She is a Bernedoodle and very cute. But
what is a Bernedoodle? She's
also teething, and she's just like she has little pipsqueakers.
What's the Berna part of the doodle?
Bernie's mountain dog. And
oh my gosh. They're breeding those together now, huh?
Oh yeah, they're gorgeous. We have two. So Brownie has an older sister, Walnut, who is two and a half years old, and yeah, they're delightful. I love dogs; they're the best.
Yeah, no, dogs are awesome. Yeah, our dog died about 6 weeks ago. I adopted her in my second TV news job back in 2009, I think. And yeah, she just died, and it has just been the hardest thing losing her.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, I know it sucks. You always know, like when you get them, that the time's gonna be too short. But I don't think anything really ever has prepared me for the goodbye. So enjoy every second, even the bad puppy behavior, because
Yeah, she just recently ate a whole stick of butter and then threw it all up on our cloth couch. So we've just had this like lingering butter vomit smell, and had
You're
to
ready
go
for parenthood.
I know, right? I had to go, get the cushions and cushion covers dry clean, and I'm like hoping when I come back tomorrow that we'll get rid of the butter vomit smell. So we'll see.
Oh, dang it. Yeah, they all do it. Mine ate 2 of my cell phones. My boss told me he was going to fire me basically if she ate another one. So actually, it was a BlackBerry back then. That dates me. Okay, sorry, I did not mean to cut you off, or maybe your dog cut you off. But yeah, what are your little secrets that people don't know about how you prepare?
Yeah, I think for me, before I'm going into any kind of like competition or any kind of important moment, right? Maybe it's an important business meeting or something else where it's sort of like high stakes and I need to perform. I think for me, one of the first things that comes to mind is my diet. And I will eat, I'll eat a little something beforehand, but I don't want to eat too much because, I might get tired or like feel like bloated. And also, the actual like choice of what kind of food, I eat. And so often it'll be something on the lighter side, like, maybe like a salad or, just like some kind of like clean, kind of clean meat, like, I don't know, right, roasted chicken or something like that. But I think the other part here, you're asking, if I lose focus, right, how do I kind of bring it back? And for me, it's like a muscle, right? It's all sort of muscle memory and training. And so if I'm in a shooting competition, for example, let me actually back up. So before, I was a marksman, I was a musician as well as a baseball player. And so, right, in baseball, for example, it's like if you're up to bat, like you need to be hyper focused on the pitch coming at you, and you literally need to be so focused that you're seeing the seams on the ball and the rotation and the pattern of the seams. So that's like a very double clicked, right, in kind of like hyper focused vision on a moving object. Musicianship is very similar. It's like, right, sometimes you're playing a song and you kind of start feeling your mind wandering, and you have to snap back right into whether it's the sheet music or if you have the song memorized. And so marksmanship is kind of same thing. It's sort of like, if I start missing my shots, or if I'm taking longer to get my sights lined up, and I'm right, if it's like a sort of a speed run where I'm being timed, it's that muscle memory of, okay, like I know what it's like for my mind to slip and lose focus. I need to snap out of that and come back into focus with whatever it is that's in front of me. And ultimately, it's about getting the job done and knowing exactly what that job is and the steps required to complete the job. And last but not least, it's about seeing yourself being successful right at the end of that whole journey and that experience. And that self-visualization technique that many of us have heard right from sports players. I use that technique, right, whether it's in sports or in business, but also just in life. And I think a key way of us succeeding in life is, right, you have to have the self-confidence, self-esteem, and faith sometimes, right, that you can see yourself succeeding at whatever it is that you want to do, whatever you want to win, or do whatever it is you want to do and who you want to be.
Those are some good words. I hope everybody's writing all this down. Chris, have you written a book yet?
Funny you should ask.
Sign copies for everybody that's in the chat.
So I'm an author. It's my book is called Shoot to Win, and it is a book for.
Oh, I saw that. I didn't realize that was a book you were holding up. I thought that was just like a graphic for your channel. Okay, let me pull that up while you're talking.
Yeah. So Shoot to Win is all of those core fundamentals of marksmanship for the new pistol, rifle, or shotgun shooter. And I back when we were interning in college, at that time, like I knew I wanted to be an author, but when you're, how old were we? 21, 22 years old or whatever, like you're usually not that skilled enough yet, right, at anything to write a book about anything. But having won Top Shot, I had so many people after I won say, Chris, like, you should write a book about your Top Shot experience. And so I was like,
your book is so amazing, Chris. It's moving on its own. I'm not even doing I'm not even doing it. Look, I press enter and then this comes up and I just go to push this and then it just flips the pages for me. See,
amazing.
it's a self-flipping book.
I love it.
Sorry, continue.
But yeah, so Shoot to Win it's not just about the fundamentals of marksmanship. I also intersperse a lot of my life story and anecdotes and how those life experiences, like being a baseball player, being a musician, taught me structure. It taught me discipline. It taught me about winning, being graceful both when you win and when you lose. And you have to make sacrifices, right? And I come from a generation and a mindset that there are no participation trophies in life. Like you shouldn't be awarded just for showing up. You actually need to do something that's helpful, that's meaningful, that's actually contributing, right, to whatever it is that's happening. And so for me, training for Top Shot was all about sacrifice and about training. I was working 50 hours a week at Google at the time. And for 5 months before I went on to Top Shot, I was also training for 20 to 25 hours a week. And so I remember sending an email to friends and family saying, hey, everybody, exciting news. All right, I'm going on to this show called Top Shot, but I'm a self-taught amateur going up against some of the world's best shooters. And I knew how far behind the curve I was and that I had so much to learn in a fairly short amount of time. And I told my friends and family, I'm like, this is a preemptive apology that like, I'm just not going to be at family dinners or friends' birthdays or, any kind of like, normal social activities that, I partake in. I just told everybody, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm literally just going to be like off the grid here for 5 months. And, I'll see you on the flip side kind of thing. But it was that level of sacrifice and hard work and training that I knew I needed to put in if I wanted to actually win Top Shot, because I was not going to get a participation trophy, nor would I want a participation trophy just for being on Top Shot. So I think that's just sort of one of those life lessons that I'd like to promote, because that's the way I live my life. And also I think it's just been a key way of my success. And I think it's just this simple tenet that we should be putting in the hard work, right, to actually do good things. And then that's only when we should actually be rewarding individuals who are, actually skilled, right, and able to perform at a high level.
Wow, can't believe she actually got Chris Cheng on her show. You're going places, girl.
Hey.
Let me see if I can find, there was a question here from before that we even started. Allison, please ask Chris if he thinks appearing before the Senate committee had any effect on the closed minds of the Senate. Thank you, Chris, for stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, it's a great question. I had a number of senators, leave me some notes and kind of, talk to me afterwards. And I'm thankful to say, yes, my testimony, I wouldn't necessarily say it, I wouldn't say it necessarily changed minds as much as I definitely helped talk about the firearms debate in a way that many Second Amendment advocates either either have not or their voices and their perspectives about how gun control is a tool of discrimination. That concept is fairly, I would say, new to a lot of senators. And so I hope that my contributions, through my Senate testimony of talking about how, for me, any kind of legislation that is discriminating against a particular race or a particular religion or a certain type of people is pretty disgusting and really terrible. So it just doesn't matter what it is, right? If you're trying to control and discriminate against and repress freedom against a certain people, like that's just really anti-American and really bad. But in my testimony, what I was also arguing is that, like, what's worse than discriminatory laws that affects one part of the population? Well, what's worse is a discriminatory law that affects all of our country, right? Every single American that either wants to be a responsible gun owner or who supports Second Amendment rights and civil freedoms and civil liberties. You know, that to me is what is the real danger here, and that I hope the senators and other folks on Capitol Hill who are involved in crafting legislation and making decisions on what happens to all of us in our country, heard and understood my arguments and what I was saying about gun control can be discriminatory, and we need to tread very carefully. And I know we're all trying to make our country safer. Every time we see a mass shooting or any of these gun violence incidents, it's heartbreaking. And as a gun owner, I look at all these violent crimes and I'm as disgusted and abhorred like everybody else. And it's something that I want to see stop, just like everybody else here in our country.
Do you think that people as you're having these conversations, the folks who, I guess, whose minds you're trying to change, have a stereotype of an idea of what they think an American gun owner is, and you're trying to challenge that to try to get them to see beyond what they may think is just, like, I don't know, a white male Republican or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So let me also kind of give a little quick background how, before I went on the Top Shot, I didn't consider myself a gun guy. To be frank, like, I did not care about the Second Amendment. It wasn't like something that I just didn't think about it, right? It just was not in my sphere of consciousness. But after Top Shot, naturally I started to pay a lot more attention about the Second Amendment and also learned how important it is. And along my journey of learning was understanding that, yeah, there are some very strong negative stereotypes and preconceived notions about gun owners. And one of those stereotypes is that gun owners are straight, white, male, misogynistic, uneducated, from the South with, in their middle age, right? It's sort of like all of these, it paints a negative perception. Now, my experience is that, the firearms community is extremely diverse, right? And I don't think it's helpful nor interesting to kind of look down on any kind of responsible part of or responsible communities in our country. So for gun owners, right, like, I'm gay, I'm Asian, I'm a white collar tech worker who lives in San Francisco. I'm responsible with my firearms, right? They're secure, and I'm not committing crimes with my firearms, and so, like, it's, for me, a big part of my advocacy and my work is trying to break down these stereotypes that at the end of the day, gun owners are just regular people like me who want to live safe and happy lives. We're not violent people. We don't ever want to use our firearms in self-defense. Like, I'm ready to, but this is not something I want to do. I don't ever want to hurt anybody. And I think that's also a preconceived notion that I think a lot of people may see guns, right, as tools of violence and death, because we all see a lot of that in the news, movies, TV shows that are glorifying, firearms and violence. But I think then some people take that negative perception and apply that to the people, right, that, own guns, and think that, oh, if you own an AR-15, then you by default must also support all of these mass shootings, or you must condone, right, that kind of violent behavior because you own the same type of gun, right, that this like mass shooter who is, right, this like insane, just like it's just insane to think how violent and how evil some people can be. And from my perspective, right, I have zero comparison, zero relationship, right, with any of these mass shooters. Like, I don't know, like just because, right, they're using an AR-15 and I own 5 AR-15s, it's sort of like saying, well, I don't know, someone I don't know, gets into a drunk driving accident with a Ford F-150. That doesn't make all Ford F-150 drivers like, evil or anything. Like that's sort of how I see it. Sort of like it just there isn't like an evil connection, right? Between like an AR-15, and it doesn't like affect someone's person. So let me highlight an example, which my jaw dropped. This was about like 6 years ago, and I was teaching someone how to shoot. They're a new shooter, and so I brought a Ruger 10/22. I brought a Glock 34 pistol, and then I brought an AR-15 rifle. And when we got to the AR-15 at the end of the training session, she fired a few rounds, and she put the safety on. I told her, right, put the safety on, gun down, and I asked her, like, how did that feel? And that's sort of a standard kind of question that I ask new shooters. And most new shooters will say something like, wow, like that was really fun. Or sometimes, that was really loud. It was louder than I was expecting it to be. Other new shooters might say it didn't have as much recoil or kick, as I thought it was going to have. But this woman had such an insightful comment that I had not heard up until that point. She said, wow, I'm so relieved, because I was expecting that when I shot this AR-15 that it was going to make me feel evil and violent, and that I was afraid that I would feel compelled to go hurt people and shoot them. And I was like, this is not how guns generally work. Mm-hmm. But that was so insightful, because I think that's how a lot of people think. That's how they view guns, right? It's like, oh, well, if you shoot guns, that must make you feel violent or make you feel evil. And that is just a core concept and misconception that I think needs to be busted, right? That's like this almost myth and falsehood that needs to be understood, right? We need to understand that some Americans have that mentality, and so if they do, then right, we can at least have a discussion around that. And lastly, I mean, the thing I found, right, we can talk about firearms all day long, but once you get someone to the range, right, shoot a gun, right, understand what we're talking about, sometimes that can do more than any kind of words can do themselves.
Chris, I had so many questions that were coming in while you're talking that I want to get to. So everybody just kind of hang on. And thanks for the super chats, by the way. Isaacs asks, in your opinion, what is one of the larger perception issues of gun ownership? And on that note, and kind of back to what you were saying, when someone says, but do you really need an AR-15? I mean, shouldn't they just be for the military? Why does an average citizen need an AR-15? Because that's what I hear quite a bit. Why do you need that size gun? What's your response to that? And then do you mind responding to Isaac as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the AR-15 for me, right? This is for me personally. Like, it started off as one of my competition guns, right? So the AR-15, Glock 34, and Benelli M2 shotgun. That's my 3-gun package. for what I used to compete with. But, you know, for self-defense or home defense, you know, my husband and I, we recently bought a second home here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we're on a large acreage, and law enforcement, like, it would take them forever. No, not forever, but it would take them quite a long time to get here. And because we have so much property, that it's like the AR-15 it's a very versatile rifle, right? That is great for short, medium, and long range engagements. It's you know, everybody's got a different right personal use case for which specific type of firearms might be appropriate for home defense. In comparison, San Francisco, like, you know, we live in a Victorian home. It's like, all right, tight, like, you know, if you imagine like the Full House TV show, right? Seeing, like, you know, the painted ladies' homes. Like, I'm not using an AR-15, like, or any kind of rifle for that matter, right? In a dense, you know, city environment. Right. So, you know, the AR-15, what I think is an interesting topic is to dive into this weapon of war, right, rhetoric that we hear a lot from, you know, from the anti-gun side of things. And so, you know, for me, I think back to what was the original intent of the Second Amendment and what is our country's history, right, with personal firearms ownership. And so this concept of the militia, which was individuals taking their personal firearms, right, to fight for your country here in America, those are arguably military grade weapons, right? The idea was to put this tremendous amount of power and responsibility into the hands of individual citizens, which was this radical idea, right? It's like the complete opposite of most governments, right, around the world. The governments are all about trying to, right, keep the people at bay, right? That the government should be more powerful than the people, so that the people can't ever overthrow the government if there was ever a moment of tyranny. But our founding fathers decided, no, we need to invert that whole concept, that whole power dynamic. We need to flip this on its head, and we need to give people, individual citizens, the power and firearms and military grade firearms. You know, back then, I mean, the musket, sure, right, was sort of one of your military grade firearms, and it was, you know, very revolutionary at the time for a variety of reasons. And so the point is, as we go through time, technology evolves, right? The First Amendment, for example, never had the internet, never had mobile phones and like text messages, right, in mind. But we see that, right, First Amendment, right, can cover free speech, right, on a different types of electronic platforms. The Second Amendment, by extension and by parallel, is also going to adapt over time and cover advancements in technological developments in firearms. So the AR-15, right, so the AR-15 is already a weaker version of the M16, which is the military version. The military version is fully auto, which is you hold the trigger down and it's just going to keep on automatically shooting bullets until you run out, where the AR-15 is what's called semi-automatic, one bullet per trigger squeeze. So the AR-15 is literally not a weapon of war because the U.S. military does not use the AR-15, right, as part of their weaponry. But that's for me the parallels of, right, technology, right, maturing over time, and, right, our constitutional rights, right, adjust and adapt to technological developments.
I would like to give you a shout out from This Is My Husband. Hey, Chris, you're a rock star, brother. And that's coming from a reconnaissance Marine and scout sniper. I ended up with, I guess, the Chris Cheng of the Marine Corps. Which I should say, okay, before we get to more gun questions, because there's a lot, and I feel like I would need you on for 7 hours to get through all of this, because we could then go into talking about news coverage of guns and whatnot. And actually, maybe I'll take a couple to get, and then I'm going to get my surprise photos from Fox News Channel. We can switch into mainstream media, and then I'll let you go because I'm sure it's going to be a wild night there in the Bay Area, not as wild here in the middle of nowhere in Eastern Washington. Okay, let's see. Which handgun does he like? Has he been to
Terran Tactical.
Somebody else also asked where do you usually go to shoot in the Bay Area, or do you have favorite ranges?
Yeah, so really quickly, my home range is the Richmond Rod and Gun Club in the East Bay in Richmond, California. It's a fantastic club. Check it out. That's also where I did a lot of my training for Top Shot. The people at Richmond are fantastic. My favorite type of handgun, I'm a Glock guy, although my first firearm that I ever purchased was a SIG P226, which is a beefy double action, single action pistol. I still love that gun. I don't shoot it as anywhere near as much as I shoot my Glock 34. And Terran Tactical, Terran is a friend of mine. Terran Butler is one of the top shooters in the world. He is also the personal trainer for Keanu Reeves, for Holly Berry. Mel Gibson was just at Terran's place down in LA. Terran is amazing. Terran Tactical is his brand of firearms. He basically does modifications to Glocks and Benellis. Terran is amazing. He's such a character. That's also one thing I love about firearms people is you've got all these just hilarious, entertaining characters. And Terran definitely squarely falls in that bucket for me.
I'm definitely married to a character. That's one word for him. What are Chris's thoughts on the Supreme Court taking that 9th appeals court decision about no open carry? I'm not totally familiar with that. Are you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not. I think at a high level, right, the Supreme Court is seeing a high number, right, of cases hit their docket, and this is kind of an interesting moment with a 6-3 Republican majority. Arguably, they might be right on the pro-gun side of things. It's been over 10 years since we've seen the Supreme Court make any kind of notable Second Amendment decision. So a lot of us were keeping an eye on the Supreme Court to see what happens with all of these gun cases that are going to be up in front of them for consideration.
Would training with pellet guns translate well to shooting actual firearms?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So the short answer is yes, but so with pellet guns, and of course it depends on the type of pellet gun we're talking about, but back to those core fundamentals of marksmanship, right? So a pellet gun is going to have a lot of the same general characteristics of basically having sights and a trigger, right? So it's sort of, if you strip a weapon down to its core essentials, you've got some kind of trigger mechanism, some kind of aiming mechanism, and then you've got your projectile. So some of again, shooting pellets will translate to shooting real firearms. One of the key differences will be you're not going to have recoil, right, with pellets. But some of that muscle memory of finger placement, trigger control, breathing control, getting practice on sight picture and sight alignment, you're going to get that with pellet shooting, just as you would with live fire guns.
Okay, this unknown sailor says the case going to the Supreme Court is not out of the Ninth Circuit. The case going to the Supreme Court is out of New York. Okay, well, we can look that up. Hawaii has failed to issue a single CCW. Lawsuit went to Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. They said no American has right to open carry, much less concealed carry. Supreme Court said, come on over. Okay, I vaguely remember this now.
Yeah. So yeah, the New York case. Well, let me actually talk a little bit about something that might be a little more, at least for me, is interesting and fascinating about open carry here in California. And back to my our earlier discussion about how gun control has been used as a tool of discrimination. And this example that I'm about to talk about was explicitly racist. So, the Black Panthers, right, was a militant Black group, here in Oakland, California. And it is so fascinating, right? It's like you rewind the tape. What was this, like 1968? I think this is like late 60s, early 70s, and you had Black Americans who were upset at the police and didn't trust them. They were getting beaten. They were getting killed. Doesn't that sort of sound, a little bit like the conversation, right, we've been having, right, over the past number of years in recent time? But the Black Panthers, right, in a show of protests, right, against police brutality, showed up at California's state capitol building in Sacramento, open carrying firearms. It scared the living daylights out of majority, white lawmakers. And the governor of California at the time, Ronald Reagan, signed a law that restricted open carry and a whole bunch of other gun control laws in response to what the Black Panthers were trying to do to exercise their Second Amendment right, and speaking up and out and against police brutality and violence, police violence against the Black community. So, gun control is a very complicated history, and I'm learning as a lot. I'm by no means a gun control history expert, but I am fascinated to learn what has happened in the past, to understand where has that put us today, and what does that mean for where we need and where we want to go tomorrow. And this false dichotomy of, right, Republicans are pro-gun and Democrats are anti-gun. Yeah, sure, right. I mean, it's a general stereotype that, is frequently true, but it's not universally true. And we've seen Republicans, right, pass some pretty gnarly gun control legislation in the past. And for me, it goes to show that we all need to be paying attention to the actual people and to the actions and the words that are coming out of their mouths. And just because they have an R, behind their name or a D behind their name doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to either be for or against, right, the things that you might happen to believe or want to see happen in our country.
Right. No, that's a really good point. Sometimes I think it's set up that way to divide and conquer, so that people are all looking at each other on instead of at the people who are in power, the lawmakers, as they doing all their sort of political magic there, magic tricks, and you lose sight of the ball under the cups. My best friend was a Vietnamese woman, and we both OC'd a firearm in New Mexico. She was one of the best shooters that I knew. God rest her soul. Cancer. Sigh. I'm sorry about your friend. But it does sort of go to your same point, Chris, about the stereotypes that people often have of the gun owners, and that, being an example of not your, what did you call it? Straight, middle-aged, white, conservative. And then there was one other thing that you said that was kind of funny, but I can't remember it now. But yes,
say some funny things from time to time.
We do say some funny things. All right. Well, that's a good lead in to, are we ready to talk about Fox News Channel?
Sure. Let's dish.
All right. Let's see, guys. Now let's switch from guns in the chat to Fox News Channel and mainstream media. The first thing I'm going to do is show Chris. Let's go back a little bit in time, shall we?
We shall. Oh, wow.
Did you remember this at all?
Was this no, this wasn't like a German embassy.
Yep, it was. This is the ambassador to Germany or the German ambassador to the United States, one or the other. I can't remember, but yeah. I mean, the German flag's in the background, so that made it but yeah, we got to, and then this guy, I can't remember his name, but he was one of the photographers that we used to work with a lot. So yes, and this is me. Everyone's asking, it's Allison's on the left, Chris is on the right, photographer in the middle, and then ambassador guy here. So here's a tighter shot in case everyone wants to see Chris.
There we go. Someone's commenting saying, Allison, you look like you're in junior high.
Yeah. Well, I would still like to look like I'm in junior high, actually. That may have been an insult back then, but now I'm not insulted by
right.
Okay, next photo.
Oh yeah.
This is my favorite part about you because I feel like, tell me what, so first off, Chris always broke all the rules about eating on the DC Metro. I believe that it's still illegal to eat on and drink on the DC Metro, but it didn't matter to him. He's always colored outside the lines. He's always been a rebel and breaking stereotypes of people who follow the rules in DC. So anyway.
So where this came from it's so funny you bring this up, right? Because I'm a responsible, law-abiding citizen. However, when you have some rules that are silly, like no eating, like on a subway train, it's like, look, like I'm not gonna like lay out a 3-course dinner like on the Metro. Like if I just want to like have a bag of pretzels, I'm gonna be neat and I'm going to like take my bag with me. I'm not just gonna like throw it and like leave it on the ground in the Metro. So that's sort of where that comes from. And also, I mean, sometimes you gotta like poke the bear a little bit to make life interesting.
And check out, is that Donald Rumsfeld on Fox there?
Yeah, good old Rummy.
Wow, that brings back memories. Well, I also remember that you were able to eat basically anything and you never gained weight. Is that still true?
No, definitely not. Like like all normal people, my metabolism has definitely slowed down over the years, and I gain weight more easily. Hangovers come more quickly and they last longer, and it takes me, I had like a scratch. I have like a scratch on my arm from like 5 weeks ago, right? Like when you're younger, like you're just right, you just heal quickly.
Yeah.
Like this scratch on my arm, it's like 5 weeks later, I still sort of see this like faint line from this like sort of scratch from some brush out here in the forest. So I'm getting old, but that's okay. It's futile to fight the inevitable, right? We're all going to get old at exactly the same rate, and it's going to be okay.
I could tell you all the problems that I have now since having a child too, but we won't get into it. It is, though, why I also don't feel bad eating my grass-fed beef jerky with you on this live stream, because I know you can appreciate some good food. And
of course.
Yes, somebody said stop eating ice cubes, and I would never eat ice cubes, but I never have time to eat because I'm a mom who works like an insane person, and so this is like live streams are my only time to eat. So anyway, here's the live stream. I do want to say, somebody asked, did we intern for Greta Van Susteren? Which we did, right? Well, and you worked with her too, just like I did.
Yeah, so my primary assignment or role was at the assignment desk, and
okay,
for folks who aren't familiar with like newsrooms, like the assignment desk.
I can show you. I can show you. Hang on, cool. I was going to show this before you.
Look at that.
Can everyone see this? This is Greta signed this for my mom. It says "Send Allison back." Send Allison back.
Nice.
But wait, okay. Before you go to the assignment desk, because I can show everybody what an assignment desk is, because like you. Oh wait. I wasn't supposed to show that yet. I wasn't supposed to show that yet. We'll go back to it. But this is the assignment desk right here. But for some reason you weren't in the, or well, some of the assignment desk people, but you weren't in the photo for some reason. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So the assignment desk is kind of like the hub of the newsroom. So almost like a little bit like traffic control. If there's a breaking story, if you have like a bureau chief or another assignment desk person from another bureau, right, they would call into the DC assignment desk and say, hey, right, breaking story, we need to, raise that flag up through leadership and or if we need to deploy camera folks. So that a lot of that action happened at the assignment desk. So it was really exciting because we were literally in the middle of seeing how the news was being made, how certain stories were being prioritized, or if there's breaking news, all of a sudden, like literally like tear up the schedule for the next hour, right? We got to go to the live kind of breaking story. So I had a lot of fun kind of learning how the sausage is made, as they say.
So funny story. When I first started, they put me on the assignment desk too. And I thought I thought I was doing more work when I got to work with Molly Henneberg, who, you remember Molly?
Oh, Molly was great. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I haven't seen her since I think we worked since we
I don't
worked
know
there.
if she's still there or not. She was there a year or two ago. I feel like a few years ago, but I think she got married and had kids. I don't know if she's still there anymore. Maybe people in the chat who watch Fox can tell me, but I don't really watch Fox anymore, so I don't know. But yeah, I would get to work with her sometimes, and then I would work with the assignment desk. At the beginning, I went into Britt Hume's wife's office. If you remember, Kim Hume was
She's a bureau chief. She's the one who hired me.
Oh, okay. Me too. Same.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I felt like I was kind of hoity-toity or something, because when I had first applied for the internship, she wrote me back and said that they were full for the summer and to try again next year. And I wrote her what I thought was like a very whatever, I won't give up kind of email. Like now looking back on it, I'm kind of like, oh my God, somebody should just slap me. But it worked. She goes, okay, fine, you can come. So I was like, great.
Wow,
So, yeah. So I like won my spot there. So then I think I really felt like I was a little too big for my britches at that point. So I was like, you know what? I belong with Molly. This assignment desk, I'm past this. So I go to her office, she's like, how's it working out? And I said, hey, listen, I think I should be working with Molly, not the assignment desk. And I gave her and she's looking at me like, okay, I was probably 19, maybe 20 when I did it. She's looking at me like, you're barely, you can't even drink alcohol yet. And you're coming into my office and telling me what you should be doing. And so basically that's exactly what she said. She's like, we tell you what you do here. You're an intern. And if we tell you to go get coffee, you'll go get coffee. And you're lucky that you're even here. And she like read me the riot act. And I called my mom crying on the way. I was like, why are you here? But anyway, it's still at work because I ended up getting to work with Molly a lot. And she was really, really nice. I really liked her. Do you remember this guy? He was the IT guy, I think.
Oh yeah, it's ringing a bell a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit of a familiar face.
And then, did you get to go on this interview?
No, boy, Ozzy before Meet the Osbournes and all.
Yep, this was Greta. Greta had an interview with him at the Ritz, and I got lucky enough and got to go along with her. I couldn't find a picture of Mike Emanuel, but I know he's still there. Do you remember him?
Oh wow,
he was really nice.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So some of them are still okay. So we've gone through all of our photos, I think. Are you surprised that I had all these?
That's amazing. Yeah, I was trying to find some photos, and I don't know. I told Allison like I transitioned from Apple Photos to Google Photos like a few years ago, and like my whole summer of 2002 photos is just like blank. So I think something happened during the migration. I've got to go do some digging because I know I have some pictures, from that summer somewhere.
It definitely is a different world when you're actually taking the actual photos, when you're taking like real. Though I will say on some level, I'm kind of worried I'm going to lose like early photos of my daughter because they're digital and I'm not actually printing them out. There's something to be said for having actual silver, for instance, right? Instead of just cash dollars. And there you go. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. What are your takeaways for like, what did you learn at Fox about how, and I guess it's different when you're talking about local news. So we'll just stick to this sort of cable news setup and the agenda and how it works behind the scenes. And when you hear people talking about it, and their concerns, which I voice my concerns on my channel all the time. What did you learn there as kind of a young buck behind the scenes? And then, looking back on it, have you changed your mind on any of those things? Do you have a different perspective on how it all works now because you had the behind the scenes experience?
Great question. I'm so glad that I had that internship because I think we both learned so much about the cable news experience. And for me at the time, I was considering a career in broadcast journalism. I wanted to cover I wanted to cover interesting stories that were meaningful, right? That would either educate or somehow move the needle in a positive direction. But my dreams were pretty much crushed after that internship. And literally it was the deciding point where I said, you know what, like, this is not the career for me. And here's why. I remember sitting I got to sit in all the daily bureau chief meetings. So every day it was something like, 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. All the bureau chiefs would call in, and I don't want to give names, but you'd have, top Fox News channel executives sitting there on the call, listening to all the bureau chiefs, right, pitch stories, right, saying, all right, I've got, this crime happened, and this politician is coming into town to talk about whatever. And this one Fox News executive was the one choosing not just which stories to be told. That's fine, right? I mean, clearly, right, somebody's gotta decide, what stories are going to get covered. But where the line was crossed for me was the executive was basically saying, here's the story, I want this story, and here's the angle that you are going to tell it, and that you are going to tell, right, like tell this story through this lens. And that for me was like, wow, I would want to be a journalist that had the freedom, right, to report the truth and to not have a bias, right, going into a story saying I need to get footage to cram, right, I need to cram footage to fit whatever like narrative that I've been told, right, to tell. And so the whole, my starry-eyed, kind of idealistic, 21-year-old mind of being like, okay, like journalists have this integrity, right? They're trying to seek the truth and, tell the story however which way that the facts and the truth, right, leads us. Like that just wasn't happening, during my experience, at least with Fox News Channel. And I'm not trying to pick on Fox News. I mean, I think the same thing happens at CNN. I think the same thing probably happens at MSNBC. And then, of course, you get advertising dollars and your advertisers, right, involved in cable news. And the competing interests, right, get very complicated. And I don't believe that cable news networks in particular, I don't think they're incentivized to actually tell the truth, and that's just like really unfortunate. So I think as long as we understand, right, some of these influences and competing forces in the mainstream media, I think it's important that we all consume media, but let's also just understand what we hear and what we're seeing is only one slice of one perspective, one slice of what this issue is about. And to also, I never just flat out trust, right, whatever I hear and see in the mainstream media. I want to take as much information as I can from multiple outlets and try and paint as much of this picture of the truth as possible before I come to my own conclusion as to, whatever it is that's being reported on.
Yeah, it's like reading a food label, being able to read a food label and saying, okay, hey, you know what? Listen, if I consume it, at least I want to know how it was made. I want to know what's in it. And then maybe I do want to avoid it on certain occasions. But I think I don't know if I've even really said it yet on my channel, but I've been thinking about this a lot. Like probably the best way that I could articulate how to approach it is you can walk away from something saying, okay, or the news saying something happened about this, something, but that should be about the level at which, if you're watching one outlet, and this even can sometimes go for local news, it's probable that something around this happened. Maybe it's totally made up, but something, and maybe it's even that the something is that the government wants you to think that this happened. That's the something, but you're not going to find out until you do the research. And maybe it didn't really happen that way at all. That's the way you should take it. Like walk away from saying like, okay, let's just talk about, and actually somebody asked if you could give an example of a particular story and then I can expound on that. Do you remember one in particular, like one topic when you were in those meetings that came up at the time?
I don't remember like the detailed specifics, but I do remember some generalities where essentially, there were right. There's always your recurring cast of politicians, right, that are being covered, by the media. And this Fox executive was often frequently wanting positive coverage, right, for certain politicians, and negative coverage for others.
Was Bush president at the time? He was right, because this is post 9/11, but pre-Iraq War, I think.
Correct. Yeah, this was 2002. So it was definitely it was right in the middle of Bush's first term.
Okay, so let's just say something related to the lead into the Iraq War. You're seeing something on the news. To me, the takeaway should be, okay, I saw this. Let's say it's gosh, I'm trying something very simple, but maybe I shouldn't even use that example because that was more. Let's say somebody has lip gloss. Okay, somebody's lip gloss is falls out of a car and hits a skateboarder and causes them to keel over onto a dog, and the dog dies. My this is something that probably is no controversy, but I would still walk away and say something may have happened with lipstick today, and that's it. Until I read multiple sources, I'm not even going to say it was the lipstick that caused the skateboarder to jump off and fall over the dog. I'm not totally sure. What was the dog doing? What was the skateboarder doing? Was the skateboarder drunk? Was the dog drunk? I don't know. And so I would want to know a bunch of different things. And so you can walk away saying maybe something did happen with lip gloss today. But if you're just watching one source, be very careful that you're not thinking to yourself, that is exactly what the purpose of the lip gloss is, exactly how the events went down, because you could watch a totally different outlet or read another explanation, and maybe it wasn't even lip gloss. Maybe maybe it was a marker and somebody just didn't see it correctly. So anyway,
it looks like lip gloss.
Yeah, exactly. That's just my PSA. Okay, Chris, we've been talking for a long time, so I want to make sure I let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your night. Is there anything that you would like to talk to people about before you go? Will you come back on the channel sometime and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to come back. You've got a fun and lively viewership, which I love. I love seeing a lot of the comments coming in. Yeah, I think the closing thoughts that I have is I want to encourage everyone to be as thoughtful and as much of a critical thinker as you can with all of these issues and challenges facing our country today. And I come from a place where I don't think that compromise is a dirty word. I think bipartisanship is oftentimes the right way for our government to function. I believe that we can probably do a lot more working together than fighting each other all the time. And we're always going to have our disagreements, right? That's the American way, right? We live in a free country where we have this open debate and discussion that should be civil. And it's this decrease in civility that I think has also been extremely disturbing, right? That we have moved to a place where it seems like the less civil you are, the more extreme on the left and the more extreme on the right you are. That's who's getting all the attention. I feel like someone who's I'm right of center politically, moderate on a lot of issues, liberal on some, like LGBT rights. I'm very liberal on that, but very conservative on others, like the Second Amendment, for example. And I don't think painting, your single brush stroke and saying, oh, right, if someone's Republican, that they're just going to be all these things in this single color of paint. It's often just not that simple. And I just want to encourage people to be civil, right? Like what has happened to just the basics of being civil, being kind, being respectful, understanding and tolerant of other people's perspectives. And this tolerance doesn't mean like agreeing with someone else. It just means, I think, understanding where they're coming from and just accepting their place in the world. And that's it, right? You don't have to agree with them, but you can still be a nice person, right? It's I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a dying attitude and mentality, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live it, and live the values and the morals and the ethics that I'm trying to hold myself up to, and hopefully I think we all want to be good examples, right, to other people, right, to be kind and gentle and thoughtful and generous, right, with our time and energy and kindness. So yeah, that's sort of I think one of my parting final thoughts for you and your listeners.
Chris, I'm glad I had such a great influence on you. You sound like you've really grown up.
Thank you, Allison.
Well, no, I really do appreciate it. It has been a blast catching up with you. I said at the beginning, if people just jumped in, this is really the first time that you and I have talked in almost 20 years.
That's
so
crazy. Yeah, we've had sort of intermittent, random Facebook, messenger messages. But yeah, no, it's been so great to like formally sit down and catch up. And yeah, I'd love to come back on. Let me know next time you want to have me, and yeah, we'll continue chatting.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have Champions. Thank you for your service, and I'm hearing a second book in the works. Lots of thanks to Chris. So everybody, don't forget to check out the links in the description, because there are links for Chris's full testimony in front of the Senate committee. There's his website. There is his YouTube channel, and he's all over social media too. You maybe see him on with Snoop Dogg and all that good stuff. So definitely check that out. There are also links in the description for my other, if you're watching this on YouTube, the other platforms where you can talk about guns a little bit more freely without getting booted off. So don't forget to check out those links as well, and head over there if you want to just make sure that the next time Chris is on, they don't cut me off midstream. But, we didn't even get into that. So you're definitely going to have to come back on so we can talk about what it's like doing firearm content on YouTube. You have a background on Google. Chris, there's so many things to ask you about. It's like I can't let you go, but my babysitter will kill me if I don't go. So we're just going to have to.
I'm going to go pull a mini excavator that almost fell off the slope that my husband cut, and he almost died last night. So we're trying to, he's trying to lick his wounded ego, and I bought a 12,000 pound rated winch today, so we're gonna go have some fun in the
amazing
dirt.
Okay, well then we'll definitely let you go, but you're gonna have to, then what we'll do is we'll plan another stream where we're gonna talk about tech and like we'll call it, what should we call it, what do you put on a gun to make it a silencer? A silencer
or a suppressor.
A suppressor. Okay, we'll think of a play on words there with speech and firearms and the suppressor. So everybody make sure that you stay tuned for Chris's 2.0 appearance. All right, everybody. Top Shot Chris Cheng. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.